Hi, this is Miley Pham. This is for my Communications 10 class at Salt Lake Community College with April Cordova. And we are going to get started. This is my audience right here.
Oops, sorry.
And then my cameraman is also part of my audience. And we will go ahead and get started. So I just wanted to go over GMOs and if they're really benefiting us, kind of giving you guys just insight about GMO technology and what is really happening with GMOs. The reason why I chose to do this topic for my presentation today was because when I was younger, my little brother, he had really bad food allergies as a child, and so as I was growing up, we always grew our own garden, and my mom always made everything from scratch, and so that kind of led up to my interest in GMO technology and whether it's actually benefiting us for the better or for the worst. So I'll just get started with this. So what is a GMO? A GMO is a genetically modified organism, and they right now have crops and other organisms out there right now that they have been genetically modifying for years. And from Wikipedia, the definition that I got from Wikipedia was a genetically modified crop that are plants used in agriculture. The DNA has been modified through genetic engineering techniques, and in most cases it was to aim to introduce a new trait of the plant which does not naturally occur in its species. The genetic modification, what happens during that, the DNA is changed all the way from its roots. So it's no longer the same crop that you will see. So like a genetically modified corn plant, it's still corn, but there aren't the similarities that you would find in a natural crop. And to go with that, there's the selected breeding. And what happens in selected breeding is plant breeders look for and select the crossbreeds that best perform in those plants. So similar to how farmers have been trying to better their crops from back in the day, they're actually now looking for the technology to enhance this crop to make it officially a super crop in that definition to better the world in different aspects. The advanced breeding, they've started doing advanced breeding, and this is where breeders identify and tag the most desirable characteristics of the traits with that plant genome. They use different information about each plant to pick these characteristics and traits that create better performing crops. And then we also have the genetic modification breeding. And with that, what happens during in genetic modifying advanced breeding, I guess, is they are preventing crop disease. So this way they are controlling, so in genetically modifying plant breeding, it is when plants need to find traits that are achieved through the breeding gene and can be turned on and off during different circumstances. And GMOs can actually help with farming nowadays, and they help prevent crop disease, they control bugs, they help the nutritional benefits of a crop, and they also help manage weeds, which we don't want. There are many different GMOs out there, and here is just a short clip. I guess it's not short, but here's a clip about GMOs and how they were made. We'll just get that started.
So you want to know how a GMO is made? You're not alone. It's one of the top questions about biotechnology. There are different ways plants can be genetically engineered. We'll use the story of papaya in Hawaii to walk you through one of them. Step 1. Determine whether genetic engineering is the most effective way to solve a plant's problem, such as a disease or damage from pests. For centuries, traditional plant breeding has been used to fight pests, environmental stress, such as drought, as well as to improve taste and nutrition. The reasons to develop GMOs are no different today, but GMOs can be created more quickly and more precisely. Other breeding methods can take decades to produce results and aren't able to be as precise in focusing on one genetic trait or isolating a solution to a specific problem. Since the 1940s, the Hawaiian papaya industry had been battling a problem, the destructive and rapidly spreading papaya ring spot virus, aka PRSV. PRSV deforms the papaya fruit and in young plants destroys the plant's ability to produce fruit at all. PRSV is transmitted by insects that feed on the fruit. Many methods were deployed to try to stop the destructive virus. In the early 1960s, farmers moved papaya production from one Hawaiian island to another, from the island of Oahu to the big island of Hawaii in the Puna district. The virus ultimately reached Puna. Other methods didn't work either, including using insecticides for the insects spreading the virus, giving the plants a mild strain of the virus to create natural inoculation, or destroying infected trees. The virus just continued to spread. 53 million pounds of fresh papaya were being produced annually when PRSV was first discovered in Puna in 1992. By 1998, that amount had been cut in half to 26 million pounds. The crops and livelihood of farmers were being destroyed in front of their eyes. Moreover, for consumers, the availability of fresh papaya and papaya juice for fruit, salads, smoothies, and other products were threatened. A powerful new tool, biotechnology, was now available to fight back. Farmers and researchers turned to genetic engineering, beginning in 1985, for help. Step 2, identify the gene or genetic material that could solve the problem, like providing resistance to the disease or pest, and study the genetic makeup of the plant that needs the trait. Researchers and farmers had to find a way to make the papaya plant resistant to the deadly virus. PRSV resistance was the genetic trait needed to solve the problem. Researchers knew that if plants contained certain genetic material from the virus within their own DNA, they were protected. If they could insert a copy of this gene from the virus itself into the papaya's genetic makeup, the plants would be protected. Step 3, copy the trait from the donor organism and implant it into the plant's DNA. Researchers isolated a PRSV gene from the virus itself. Then they needed a way to get the genetic material into the papaya plant's own DNA. Researchers deployed a commonly used technique in biotechnology called transformation, a process by which a copy of genetic material from a specific trait is inserted into cells. There are many ways to transform a cell. In this case, the researchers used a high-speed particle bombardment method. Through a high-pressure insertion device, the gene from the virus was inserted into the DNA of the papaya seed. The genetic material made the plant resistant to the ring spot virus, just as a flu shot makes people resistant to the flu. The researchers were able to successfully transform 17 plants. These plants contained this gene from the virus and produced a protein from the virus that helped the plants become resistant to the PRSV infection. Step 4, plant the new seed and test it. The final step was to plant the seeds and carefully test the resulting plants. One line of plants demonstrated consistent resistance to the virus. After several years of testing, it was determined that this line performed well on the farms, was safe for people to eat, and was of commercial quality. Success was achieved. One variety of transgenic papaya, the Rainbow, yielded about 125,000 pounds of marketable fruit per acre per year, 25 times the amount of fruit produced per acre by a non-GM variety infected by PRSV. These tests took about 7 years, including food safety and environmental review by the FDA, USDA, and EPA. Once regulatory approval was gained, the Hawaiian farmers chose to start using the new papaya seeds. The result? The harvesting of the new PRSV-resistant papaya began in 1998, and by 2001, the industry had rebounded, producing 46 million pounds of fresh papaya, free of PRSV. This kept the vibrant papaya industry alive in Hawaii, and ensured consumers had access to high-quality papaya and papaya juice at a reasonable cost. Genetic engineering allowed the introduction of PRSV resistance without altering other traits of the papaya or changing the plants in other ways. The plants were exactly the same in nutrition and safety. As of 2010, 70% of Hawaii's papaya industry is GM papaya. GM papaya has been grown and consumed in the U.S. for more than a decade. This is just one GMO story. We hope to share more with you. Please share your comments.
So that was just one story of GMO production through papaya, but there are different types of crops that we have in the U.S. This is just a list of some that we have currently, and those are like tomatoes, rice, corn, alfalfa, cotton, wheat, sugar beets, summer squash, canola oil, yeast, peas, papaya, and also salmon. The most common that you will see in the U.S. right now that we use a lot more of is the corn, soybeans, cotton, alfalfa, the sugar beets, papaya, and then the squash. There are 80% of our processed foods contain GMOs that we don't even know that are in our foods right now. And with that, they thought that GMOs would be a miracle of science. They were actually made to cure hunger in third world countries, such as Africa, Asia, just different parts of the world. So they were known to science as a miracle of science because they were first created to help that hunger crisis that we had going on, and they were considering genetic modification plants. They would be easy to send over there after they were genetically modified to grow better in their parts of the country, and they thought that they could send over those crops to start feeding those people the food, such as corn, because corn has so many different ways of using it as a crop, and that way they could make chips and tortillas, and they could eat the corn. They could even make cornmeal to make breads and stuff like that. They were also thinking that this would help during times of war. That way they could send our troops fruits that wouldn't spoil while being sent over, because they have been genetically modified to last longer in certain situations. And ultimately, what does the FDA think about this? The food industry, they do not have to label whether their food is GMO, if they have GMO crops in them. And that's something that I think the FDA should have to tell us, because there are so many unhealthy things about GMOs. So the framework of GMOs, we're going to talk about the safety of GMOs, how they're unhealthy, and how you should be eating more organic foods, and what they're doing to the environment. So with its safety, GMOs contaminate. Once they are contaminated and genetically modified, there is no going back. So genetic engineering creates a dangerous effect. GMOs, they cross-pollinate, and the seeds can travel. It is impossible to fully clean a contaminated gene pool. The propagating GMO pollution will outlast the effects of global warming, which means that those plants are going to be present still after a major crisis. And there are many side effects from that. As you can see, organic farms, they don't spray their crops, so that way we aren't getting those chemicals into our food that the genetically modified plants that they contain, and they are dangerous. And this was a picture that I found that kind of just gave you an insight to actually show you what is going into your foods. So in a non-organic tomato, as you can see, there are 35 pesticide residues. And those 35 pesticide residues, they have different chemicals that are known to give you cancer, different health effects. There are 14 suspected hormone distributors. There are 6 neurotoxins and 3 developmental or reproductive toxins that are really deadly for you. And that brings us to why they are unhealthy. So the DNA from the actual plants, they get transferred to humans, causing things like autism, allergies to more plants, and ultimately cancer-causing carcinogens. The effects on the environment have been tested, and they are finding that pesticides, they obviously aren't good for us. They're there to kill the bugs and prevent disease. And the question that I ask is, if we're spraying those on our plants and stuff and they're killing the bugs, wouldn't you think that that would kill us too? GMOs have also increased in herbicide use, and it's unethical. And the reason why it is unethical is because